My name's Jason Gersula. I wanted to just give you a little brief synopsis of my time in Alpha. Back in 2006, I attended an Alpha course. At that point, I had a really big question of science versus religion. And it was kind of a do or die question for me. If I didn't answer that question, I probably wasn't going to turn towards God if that question couldn't become real in my mind. What I was able to do is sit at the table there in Alpha week after week and just hear the testimony of God and who God was. And then my Alpha leaders, they were willing to go above and beyond in my mind. But later I found out that that's what they always try to do, is to go and really help me to understand my deep need and my question of this science versus religion. You know, as a child, I grew up with going to public school and being told that we came out of a primordial ooze, that creation was not a real thing. And yet the Bible told me that God created us. And for me, that was a real struggle. It was a real thing I had to deal with. Just all those years of realizing that I went to school and learned one thing, but yet the Bible was confronting those things in a different way. And I had just recently had a child, so that was part of my prime motivation to really figure this out. Is this something we need to do, or is this just something that people do because it's a good idea and maybe your kids grow up better? I really wanted to know, was there really a true God? Was there Jesus? And so about 4 weeks into the course, by then I had answered my big question of science and religion to a point where I probably didn't understand all of it, but I understood it well enough that I could move on. And at that point, I had enough teachings that one Sunday, I basically came to a Sunday service, and I was able to then give my life to the Lord. I raised my hand in a Sunday service, and from that point forward, it's really that foundation that Alpha had set that gave me the ability to really build upon that, to deal with my pornography issue and move past that. And at that point, I was able to really be freed up to start serving in the church. I served in children's ministry. I actually joined Alpha as a table helper, and then eventually became a leader. And through just those interactions in Alpha, where people are asking deep questions and things that, it's more than just the surface of whether God is real or whether God is who needs to be served, but it was really what people's deepest felt needs were in Alpha. Questions that don't just require a simple yes or no answer, because people are making a choice at that point whether they're going to truly serve or not. And it was through Alpha that I ended up feeling called and led to start taking classes to become a pastor. I led a few small groups for our church as well. Nothing really heavy or anything like that, but it was all through this Alpha experience where I gained this knowledge and this freedom to really express my relationship with Christ, that I was able to then move forward. I got the opportunity to go on 2 missions trips to Peru, one in 2010 and the other in 2012. And I think through those trips, I gained a deep understanding of what God is calling us all to. I became very missional in the way I worked at my employer at that point. I was very missional minded about always bringing somebody up with me and being led by somebody. I just really felt that there was this strong need that needed to be met for me to be able to do these things. June 9th of 2012, I was sitting in a Sunday service, and we had a speaker who was in who came in, and his message was all about becoming a missionary. And were there people in the audience that wanted to become missionaries? And at that point, I just felt a really strong tug that God was saying, I've called you to do this. I've been training you ever since that first day in 2006 when you stepped into Alpha to learn who I was so you could go out and make me known. At that point, I really didn't know where I was going to go with this. I didn't feel called to a particular country or anything like that, but I really felt that I was called to go into missions. We ended up doing missional training with Youth with a Mission in 2014. We had an outreach in Brazil. I also got my pastoral credentials in 2014. And by December of 2014, me and my family had come into full-time missions. Now, had somebody not spent that time with me back in 2006, would I be where I am today? That's the question that I think most people are asking themselves as they head into an Alpha course. Is this course going to change my life? Is this course going to give me knowledge I don't already have? Is this course going to be something that there will be an impact in my life from it? And I can say truly that in 2006, when I stepped in there with my deepest need being to know whether creation was the way we were created, or whether we came out of a primordial ooze or Darwin's theory, that through Alpha I was able to really experience God at a different level and learn who He was. And today, now I'm serving as a full-time missionary. So Alpha meant a lot to me. Alpha meant a big deal to my walk with Christ. And I believe that Alpha will mean a big deal to your walk with Christ as well. The time you spend in listening to the lectures and sitting there in the group time, you'll really learn who God is and who Jesus is and that price that was paid. And may it lead to missions? I don't know. I know it did for me, but it will give you a sense of who you truly are in Christ. And I've told so many people over my journey with Christ so far, just in 8 short years, that I went from somebody who didn't really believe in God to somebody serving in full-time missions. I've told so many people about the Alpha course, and I just ask that you give it a try, that you take my challenge of sitting there for 10 weeks, going through the course, and see what God changes in your life. See what happens in just those short 10 weeks, and then see where God takes you. God has amazing plans for all of us, and I just hope that you'll take my challenge and follow that.